Yeah, let's talk to our chief football correspondent, Alex Crook. Hey, Crookie.
Afternoon, boys. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you too. Where do you want to start? I mean, Nuno says West Ham, he's made it clear to the hierarchy they need at least 3 new signings. Blimey, only 3. I mean, it's only one game, but whoa, it was bleak on
Monday,
good, wasn't it?
Do you know what? I can't remember a Premier League team, certainly not an established one, as in not a newly promoted side, being that poor for 90 minutes. I mean, 2-0 flattered West Ham. If it was 5 or 6, it wouldn't have been an unfair reflection. So I think you can understand why Nuno Espirito Santo is in need of reinforcements, as you say. My understanding is he wants 3 players. That'll be a defender, a midfielder, and I think most importantly of all, a centre forward, because they didn't start with a recognised number 9 against West Ham. I think it's pretty clear that Nuno doesn't necessarily feel that Callum Wilson can cut it in the Premier League anymore, because even when they were 1-0 down until stoppage time, he opted not to bring him on. And one possibility that I've floated in this piece of my notebook, which was out on the talkSPORT website yesterday, is Joshua Zirkzee at Manchester United, someone who isn't getting any game time there. He wants to go. I think Italy probably is his most likely destination. There's talk over there that maybe Roma could terminate the loan of Evan Ferguson, who's not doing particularly well, and bring in Zirkzee. But I think he's the type of player who actually could do quite well for Nuno, because you look at his previous successes at Wolves, they had Raul Jimenez as a target man. Obviously at Forest, it was Chris Wood. Because Fulkrug can't stay fit, they are lacking that type of player at West Ham.
Yeah, is Zirkzee that kind? I just wonder if he's, he is clearly really talented, okay? And definitely Man United fans have not seen the best of Zirkzee at all. But I get the impression that he needs to be sort of floating somewhere nice where things are going well, and then you'd see the best of him, as opposed to it's winter. The London Stadium isn't a great place to play football. West Ham fans know that. The fans will be on you. I mean, I may be doing him a disservice. Maybe he would be like in and out there, but you sort of feel like actually you need Fulkrug but 25 and fit, and then that's what West Ham need, I think.
Yeah, I absolutely take your point, but I guess options in January are thin on the ground. It's a really difficult market to navigate, and at least you've got someone who does know about the rigours of the Premier League. I agree with you, by the way. I've been quite critical of Joshua Zirkzee in the past, but there is talent there. I mean, he's got a terrific touch. He's got a good footballing brain, but clearly he doesn't have a role at Manchester United. So he'll definitely go somewhere in January. It's just a question of where.
I do want to say that Brentford were very, very good as well.
Brentford were, Brentford were. But I was going to say, actually, had Ange stayed at Forest, Chris Wood would have been a possible option, I think, for West Ham. But now you imagine, Crookie, that Chris Wood will be, if fit, straight back, leading the line for Sean Dyche.
I think he would have been one of the Forest players who was punching the air when Sean Dyche walked into the training ground earlier this week, because you're right, you just got the impression that he wasn't necessarily going to be an Ange Postecoglou type player. Obviously, he's worked under Sean Dyche before, and I do think that appointment is back to basics, really, as far as Forest are concerned. No longer are they trying to change and play a more expansive style of football. They're going to go back to soaking up possession, using their wide players to get crosses into the box for Chris Wood. So actually, fantasy league players out there, Chris Wood might not be a bad addition to your team in the coming weeks.
I don't know if it goes this way as well, but if it gets any worse at West Ham, someone like Jared Bowen, he seems to be carrying the team on his own a lot of the time. I know he's getting in trouble with his father-in-law, but he'd have enough of playing there, surely, wouldn't he? He'd be looking for a move.
Well, I don't think it's too outlandish to say that playing at West Ham is going to harm his chances of a place on the plane at the World Cup. I think if he was at Tottenham or Liverpool, for example, and playing well, I think he'd have much more opportunity of forcing his way into Thomas Tuchel's plans. And actually, even Jared Bowen seemed to get a bit bogged down by it all the other night. He tried desperately to carry the fight on his own, but there's only so much you could do. And by the end of the game, his shoulders were slumped as well. But you're right, he's married to the club in more ways than one, isn't he, Jared Bowen?
I was going to say, if you want to upset Danny Dyer, don't sign for Spurs, whatever you do. Let's talk about Newcastle United. They've got this new head of sporting director, Ross Wilson, who came from Forest, didn't he? So what are his priorities?
Well, I think it's as much about tying players down to contracts, existing players, as it is about adding to the squad. I'm not sure they're going to be that busy, Newcastle, in January, but we hearing the news today that Sandro Tonali has signed a new contract. That happened in secret, actually, during his betting ban. So he's there at least until 2029. There's an option to keep him till 2030 as well. So Newcastle fans rejoicing at that news. The other two players that Ross Wilson, the new man in situ at the top, wants to tie down are Sven Botman, whose contract is up in 2027, and Tino Livramento, who's got an extra year. He's not up until 2028, but we know that Manchester City, among others, are looking at him. So Ross Wilson is going to try and get these deals done in the coming weeks, and certainly in the case of Botman, I think that should be quite a simple transaction.
Talk to us about Endrick at Real Madrid. You know, another incredibly talented player, but Real Madrid have a lot of them.
They do, and there's a few who might be on their way out, and Endrick is certainly one of them. I think somewhat reluctantly, because it's hard to leave a club like Real Madrid, but he wants to be playing for Brazil at the World Cup next summer, and he just isn't getting any game time there. There is interest from the Premier League. Real Madrid to West Ham is probably not a particularly desirable move at this moment in time, but certainly West Ham have shown interest in previous transfer windows. I mentioned Tottenham in the article because I think they're going to try and strengthen at the top end of the pitch in January. You look at their early season form, and it's pretty clear to me that while they've got some very good players in other areas of the pitch, they are lacking where it really matters in the goal-scoring department. He's still only 19, Endrick, and he sort of burst onto the scene as a wonder kid in Brazil. So I think he'll be a good pickup for someone, but it won't be cheap. Real Madrid, I'm told, would want a substantial loan fee, and also they would want his wages of around about 70 grand a week covered in full as well. But maybe the Premier League could be a destination for him.
Yeah, interesting Tottenham's attack, isn't it? Because they sort of have a lot of, and they're not all the same type of player, you know, Tell and Kolo Muani, and Richarlison. But yeah, you're right. Solanke not being available, I think for Frank is a real issue, because I think he would do exactly the job that Thomas Frank would want.
I mean, the perfect signing for me for Tottenham would be Ivan Toney. How easy it would be to get him out of Saudi Arabia because the financial issues there. Obviously, that was part of the reason that Steven Gerrard didn't take the Rangers job in the end. I don't know, but certainly someone who obviously is suited to Thomas Frank. I think Tottenham fans would absolutely love him, and I think he can still do a job in the Premier League. But as I say, I think that'd be a difficult deal to do.
A quick one on Norwich. Liam Manning's not going well there. Who Norwich got from Bristol City. They're having a really torrid time. 20th in the Championship, and might try and get Mark Robins out of Stoke, which would be very tricky, I think.
Yeah, I do as well. Bearing in mind how loyal he was to Coventry, and there were undoubtedly numerous opportunities he had to leave the Sky Blues. But he is a Norwich legend, isn't he? He was in that team that finished third in the very first year of the Premier League, back when football was started, of course. And he was also in the team that beat Bayern Munich in the UEFA Cup as well. So I can see the emotional pull, and he's a good manager. He's proved that at Stoke. They're flying a lot higher than Norwich are in the Championship. The message I keep getting out of Norwich when I approach the club is that there's nothing to see here in terms of Liam Manning, but I think a lot of Norwich fans are starting to feel very different now. As you mentioned, they lost last night. They're in the relegation places in the Championship for the first time in something like 7 or 8 years. And this is a team, I think, at the start of the season had aspirations of a top 6 tilt. So I think a change is inevitable, and Mark Robins would certainly be one of their leading targets if he was willing to leave Stoke.
Interesting.
Good stuff, Crookie. Thanks for coming on.
Crookie.
Cheers, guys.
More on those. You can get Crookie's notebook. It's on the website, talksport.com.